So this is Algebra 1, Semester 1. This is the first unit called Equations, and this is the second lesson called Operations and their Opposites and Order of Operations, and it might have a practice on there. So this is on creatormath.com under the Algebra 1 tab. You might have to Google creatormath.weebly.com to find the site. The instructions are copy the following problems into your composition book on the correct pages according to the table of contents with the notes for those pages from creatormath.com. So this is a problem set. It's made to be used in conjunction with the notes, which you copy into your comp book. Here's the website name, creatormath.weebly.com. Google that, and hopefully you can get to the home page, which looks like this. For this class, all the notes go in a composition book, and all the requirements for that composition book are on this first page. Just go down till you see composition book, watch all the videos, follow all the directions. You should have 100% in that if you're following all those. Let's go to the Algebra 1 tab where all the notes, videos, problem sets, and vocab are. All right, so if you aren't getting a 100% on your vocabulary practices, make sure you figure out how to open the Vocabulary Algebra 1 Practice Study PDF. It's got every vocabulary word for the entire school year in there, you guys. And if you search it, you're going to be able to get 100% on those assignments, all right? And it'll help you learn them a lot more quickly. Now we're going to find the right semester. Pay attention to that depending on what semester you're in. This is the one we're working on for a lesson now. It's semester 1. It's Algebra 1 Table of Contents, and it goes on pages 2 through 6 of your composition book. So, if you haven't already copied every one of these lines into pages 2 through 6 of your composition book, please stop and do so now. Remember to follow the video on how to number your pages of your comp book carefully. If you mess that up, then the entire comp book starts to get all messed up. All right? But this is the table of contents. We're going to go down and find the unit we're in. This is the unit, Equations. We're in the second lesson here, Operations and their Opposites and Order of Operations. It goes on this page in your comp book. Please don't take this video's word for it, but go back and find the table of contents during the time you're watching this video. By the time you watch it, it will be different. Here are the notes. The problems in the video solution will be linked right here. So we're going to open notes. Fair warning, it sometimes takes me twice to open this. In this case, it didn't. You're going to be able to enlarge it. You're going to copy this into your composition book on the correct pages. So this is going to talk about operations. So addition, subtraction, right? Basics. We first taught you addition way back when in elementary school, and then shortly after we taught you subtraction. And that would be a forward operation and a reverse operation. So you can go forward, 3 plus 5 is 8, but we also loved a reverse. Everything has a reverse in math. Okay, in this case it's subtraction. So we can say 8 minus 5 and go right back to 3. So we started at 3, we ended at 3. We went forward, we went reverse. We took a step back. That is what math is. It's forward and reverse over and over again. We went on and taught you multiplication. What do we teach you right after multiplication? Division, because multiplication is a forward and division is a reverse. In high school, we've taught you power. You know, something raised to the power 2, 6 squared is 6 times 6, or 36. We have a reverse of a power. It's called a root. So we can take the root of 36 and go right back to 6. The power says take these two numbers and multiply them together. And the root says what two numbers multiplied together equal the number under the square root. Okay, so forward and a reverse. We have distribute and factor. To distribute is to multiply across terms. So if we have 3 times the value of the quantity x plus 2, the 3 times x becomes 3x, the 3 times 2 becomes 6. But we can also factor this. If we divide both terms by 3, we go pull this 3 out, and we go right back. So you have distribute property is forward. Factoring would be a reverse of that. Technically it's multiplication, but you get the idea of a forward and reverse operations in math. That's what we use all the time. That's basically all we do. So students are often taught Pemdas. I don't like it, and I'll show you these two problems why. Well, I take that back. You guys, I love it for one reason and I hate it for another reason. How about that? I love it because students remember PEMDAS so quickly. They remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and then they remember parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. That's the order in which operations flow. So they love it and they show up to class knowing that. The problem is there's some technical problems, difficulties that they run into. I like this chart, order of operations, parentheses is first, parentheses override all, power and root comes first, multiplication and division next, and addition and subtraction next, with this caveat or warning. If it's power and root, you do whichever comes first, left to right, because they are equal and opposite operations. Multiplication and division, it's a forward and a reverse, but otherwise equal and opposite. So whichever comes first, you're going to do multiplication and division. So this left to right rule is what students forget when it comes to PEMDAS. Here's an example. I love these two examples. So let's say we have 7 minus 3 plus 4. Is that 8 or 0? So let's just go with PEMDAS. This is a minus, okay, a subtraction, and an addition. Let's just look at PEMDAS. Which comes first? The addition does, right? So if I strictly followed PEMDAS blindly, I would take 3 plus 4 is 7, and then I would do the subtraction because that comes after it, and I would do 7 minus 7, and I'd get 0, right? The only problem with that is it's wrong, because subtraction and addition are equal and opposite, and your teacher taught you when it's equal opposite, it's left to right. So this comes first, left to right, so we do 7 minus 3 is 4, then add 4 to it and get 8. 8 is the correct answer here, you guys. Okay, let's go to the next one. 6 divided by 1 times 2. What does PEMDAS say? It says multiplication first, then division, right? I'm reading it right here, you guys. I just go from left to right across the thing, and it says multiplication first, then division. So if I multiply first, I do 1 times 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. The only problem is that's wrong, because your teacher taught you if it's equal and opposite operations, you do whichever comes first, left to right. Well, division comes first in this case. So 6 divided by 1 is 6, times 2 is 12. 12 is the correct answer. So we're going to go over that one more time. I know I went over it pretty quickly. Copy all these notes in your comp book, and then do the problem set. Let's work on the problem set right now. So what's the opposite operation of multiplication? Opposite operation. Operations, you guys, in math are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, power, root. Those are the operations of math. They're kind of like the tools of math. Okay, so my teacher would always talk about operations of math. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, multiplication is an operation. They're asking for the opposite of multiplication. Well, it's division. One's a forward, one's a reverse. What's the opposite operation of division? Multiplication. They're opposites. You use them to go forward and reverse in math. What is the opposite operation of addition? Subtraction. What's the opposite operation of subtraction? Addition. Piece of cake, right? As long as you can remember it, we're going to start to apply it here. A lot of easy things in math get passed by students because they're like, that's easy. Then all of a sudden it gets complicated and they're like, wait, what happened? What is the opposite operation of power? Root. So you have x squared, that's a power 2, but we can take a square root of it, a 2 root, and these will reverse each other, and now you have just the x. Okay, so that's a power, and that's a root. All right, what else they got? The opposite operation of a square root or root 2. So now look, let's try to draw out what they're saying, because this is worded, this is tough words to get through. So what they're saying is a square root or a 2 root. There's a 2 root here. We don't show it when it's 2. We just say square root of x. That's all we show. What is the opposite of a square root? It would be a power 2. If you raise a square root to the power 2, they cancel each other and you get just x. And that's the whole idea of forward and reverse in math. So the opposite of a square root is a power 2. See, got complicated really quick there, right? We started out with addition, subtraction, and we rolled right into power and root. All right, the opposite operation of a cubed root. So let's write it so you can have an idea of what we're talking about. So here's a cubed root. This is the way it looks. The 3 is out here on the root symbol. This is a cubed root of x. Well, the opposite would be to cube the whole thing. This would reverse this, and you would have just an x left. So it's going to be a power 3. This is a power 3, which reverses a root 3. What is the opposite of a power 2? So if we have an x squared, what's the opposite? It is a root 2 or square root, right? We don't show the 2, we just write a square root symbol, and these are opposites. They cancel each other out. You're left with just the x. So it would be a square root or a root 2. And again, this is a little bit more high school level, right? You don't really learn power and root too much until you get into high school. Maybe middle school you did, and good for you. Good for your teacher for teaching you that. What is the opposite operation of power 3? X to the 3 power. It would be a 3 root. Hope you see a pattern here. They cancel each other. You're left with just an x. So it would be a root 3, or we call that a cube root. All right, we have all this in. In order of operations, which comes first, addition or subtraction? Trick question, you guys. If you wrote PEMDAS, this could trip you up, but if you remember the left to right rule of equal and opposite operations, which addition and subtraction are. Addition and subtraction are equal and opposite operations, therefore, whichever comes first in the expression or equation is the one that is executed first. Left to right rule of equal and opposite operations. This is what students forget with PEMDAS. That's the part I don't like, because they forget it. They're always taught it. They just forget it, because it's a little bit too much of a detail, all right? In order of operations, which comes first, multiplication or division? Trick question. They're equal and opposite, multiplication and division. So multiplication and division are equal and opposite operations. Therefore, whichever comes first in the expression or equation is the one that is executed first. Whatever comes first, left to right, you guys, when it comes to equal and opposite operations. All right. Correct evaluation of. So evaluate this expression correctly. Well, I'll show you the wrong answer first. PEMDAS. I'm gonna incorrectly apply PEMDAS. I have a subtraction and an addition. Well, does an addition come first? So I'm gonna add first. 7. I'm gonna bring down this 7 minus, and I'm gonna get 0. Problem? Wrong. Because there is a left to right rule right here. They drew this arrow under here and said L2R. If it's equal and opposite, which addition and subtraction are, we do whichever comes first left to right. So the correct answer would be 7 minus 3 is 4. Then we would add the 4, and this would equal 8. Check. This is 8. That's your correct answer. Now, I know I have students every time, I've had honors classes split right down the middle 50-50 where students are like, no, I'm going to call my teacher from last year right now. I'm like, okay, let's see what we do. So I want to give you a way to break the tie. How do you break the tie? Type it into your calculator, you guys. Take 7 minus 3 plus 4. 7 minus 3 plus 4. Type it directly in. Look at the answer. 8. You guys, your calculator is programmed correctly for order of operations. Trust the calculator. You don't have to call your teacher from last year. Just type it in and let the calculator help you understand that it's a left to right rule that's not being applied correctly that would make this wrong. Okay, so let's do it wrong again here. 6 divided by 1 times 2. Go back to PEMDAS. Because the multiplication is first, the wrong application of this would be multiplication first. 1 times 2 would be 2. 6 divided by 2 would equal 3. Wrong. That's the wrong answer, you guys. Because what your teacher taught you was if it's equal and opposite, like multiplication and division are, there's an L2R rule here, right? So left to right means whichever comes first. The division comes first, left to right. So 6 divided by 1 is 6. Now times the 2 is 12. This is the correct answer. Again, you don't have to call your teacher from last year, and I say that just because I've just had it happen repeatedly over the years. Just type it into your calculator. Pull out your calculator, switch it to calculator mode, right, your phone, and do 6 divided by 1 times 2. 6 divided by 1 times 2. 12. Check. Okay? Trust the calculator. They've programmed this thing to work according to our agreed upon order of operations. Make sure you're matching up the title of this thing so that the practice set you're working on and the video you're watching match. This is Algebra 1, Semester 1, Unit 1, Equations, Lesson 2, Operations and their opposite and order of operations practice. All right, it's on creatormath.com under the Algebra 1 tab, and I hope this helps.